welcome back to another episode of Trust in the Force. I am your host, Vactor. I'm here with my favorite Star Wars fan, Super Tim. Tim, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. The force is with
Excellent.
me today.
Yes, as it is always, my friend. And speaking of the Force, I wanted to get your perspective on something because you brought this to my attention. The state of Star Wars right now in 2024, we're recording this in September of 2024. What is kind of this general overall state of Star Wars? And I kind of wanted to ask you why you brought that up specifically. What was your thought process on that?
The reason I wanted to talk about this because it's been a month since the cancellation of the Acolyte, and sadness, and still feeling that, and it just made me wonder. And I read a thing the other day that uh, that that there is no going to be no Mandalorian season 4 allegedly, and
I
that
saw that.
and that Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be it. Which
Mm,
I'm a huge fan of. I've been a huge fan of the Mandalorian ever since it dropped on Disney Plus. It was the first thing I watched on Disney Plus, so
yes.
that got me a little upset and just got me thinking like. And hearing rumors about they're only going to do one live action Star Wars project per year,
No.
for Disney Plus at least. Yeah, because we've been spoiled this year because we had the Bad Batch, we had the Acolyte, we had Bad Batch is in live action, but still Star Wars. Uh, we
And we're getting
had
Skeleton Crew.
we're getting Skeleton Crew at the in a couple months, and it just had me thinking about like where are we at with Star Wars, because it just feels like and I love Star Wars. I'm a huge fan. I was at FanX this week and got a picture at every 501st Legion Star Wars cosplay booth that I
Nice.
could. It was really cool. Coming out of that, I was literally 3 feet away from Anthony Daniels, which was fantastic. So
Nice.
fun. Yeah, and I literally stumbled onto that too. It was funny. I'll tell this story. So
Yeah.
I'm killing time, before I have to go wait in line for a panel by Brandon Sanderson, my favorite author, and so like, oh, I haven't done the Star Wars stuff yet. I haven't gotten pictures with the stormtroopers and the Mandalorians and the rebel people, and so I went to all the different booths, and I'm coming out, and it was in like a circle, and so I'm coming out, and I'm coming out, and there's this huge crowd, and I'm like, well, Brandon Sanderson's not here. He's not signing yet, and then I hear someone say, yeah, the guy in the white hair is C-3PO. I'm like, what? and so he's basically setting up this big group photo op with all the Star Wars cosplayers in costume and stuff, and he just he gets, and he's like literally standing there like, you stand here, you stand here, you stand here, and then he gets into the shot, and it was just a lovely thing to see, and as a fan.
Nice. Nice.
It's just like and instead of saying cheese, they say the force is with us, and that was really cool. Anyway, all this to say, huge fan. I love Star
Yes,
Wars.
yes.
However, I am a little nervous about the future of Star Wars and where we're at right now. The vitriol, the online vitriol, that's not new. But however, it seems the movies don't have that sense of cohesion that each trilogy had. Like
Mm,
even the
right.
sequel trilogy, I always felt a little bit of a cohesion. But with Mandalorian and Grogu, obviously, is a reaction to everything Mandalorian and Grogu. The Rey movie, the Dawn of the Jedi movie, which who knows if that's happening with how Indiana Jones 5 bombed. So I'm getting a little nervous, and in Star Wars comics, and we were having a conversation with our friend Tim Gannon at Beers with Geeks about how it just seems that now with even comics, like with this Battle of Jakku arc that they're doing, like and returning to that era which we haven't had in a while, and with some things here and there, it just feels like they're like throwing darts at the board. Um, good thing the High Republic's still strong in the novel space, but yeah, it's just I'm a little nervous about how things are and where we're headed in the future.
Yeah, and I kind of share your sentiment because I want there to be a direction for
Mm-hmm.
things that are coming out. When the sequel trilogy was coming out, I felt like we were grounded in okay, we know there's going to be three, we know this is going to be a trilogy. And then originally, the plan of, oh, every other year, every kind of off year is going to be a side story, starting with Solo and Rogue One. And we had like a plan, a roadmap, and it felt good at the beginning. It
Yeah,
felt like, oh,
like
okay,
it felt like a structure because like you said,
right,
we would have a saga movie and then we'd have an anthology movie, a saga movie and an anthology movie. Now, obviously, those saga movies would run its course, but we still had those saga things to like those anthology things to kind of keep us going. But it just feels like and and this has been the case like oh I want to say like ever like even during that time where they'd announce somebody. They'd
right,
announce like a filmmaker, a
right,
director,
yep.
or a set of writers. You know, they announced a Ryan Johnson Star Wars trilogy after Last Jedi, and that is all but gone. And they announced a Josh Trank movie, which obviously with the failure of his Fantastic Four film, didn't happen. Phil Lord and Chris Miller departed Solo, which that probably would have been a better film if they were in charge of it.
Ah,
And yeah, it
man.
just seems like Star Wars has just been in this like weird space, and it's very disconcerting.
Yeah. And when I've talked about it before on this show, after Ahsoka and after Acolyte, I had the exact same feeling of, okay, where is this going? Are we getting another season? Is this story going to continue? With Ahsoka, we're getting that. With Acolyte, we're not. So it
Yeah.
just feels like you said, throwing things against the wall to see what's going to stick, what's going to happen after Skeleton Crew. We know Andor season 2, and then like you said, kind of the speculation and the thinking is Grogu and Mando is going to be like the last thing in that saga and that story, and that kind of makes me sad because I love Mandalorian and where that whole show has gone, the journey that
Hmm.
they've gone on Mandalorian. What's next? What is after that? And I'm sure at Disney they've got something in the works. Lucasfilm, they've got some type of roadmap or something that they're working on. But for us as fans, it doesn't feel like there's anything super meaningful to look forward to beyond Andor season 2. I'm super excited about, but beyond that, what's the Ray movies coming, and it doesn't feel like there's a trilogy. It doesn't feel like there's an anchor point for the future of Star Wars right now. So I wish we would have an announcement. And with Disney kind of pulling back with Marvel and Star Wars, they were like, all right,
Hmm.
we're going to do quality over quantity. Now it's like, okay, well, it's a dry landscape. Now the future is kind of barren of what they've announced on both fronts. I feel like on Marvel and Star Wars, and you and I are both huge MCU fans. We're both huge Star
Hmm.
Wars fans. So it just kind of feels like right now we are grasping at straws for the live action stuff and even the animation. We don't have a continuing series like we had with Bad Batch. Oh, we can look forward to the next season of Bad Batch or Clone Wars or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And
I mean, obviously, there's going to be something
right,
because
Star Wars is not
because
dying; it's not going
yeah,
away.
no, it's not going away. But I guess I mean I don't need to know like everything in advance or anything like that.
Right.
Like that's not what I'm saying. It just with the cancellation of the Acolyte and what the Acolyte, why it was so special, at least to me. One, because of the High Republic of it all, so I'm a huge fan of that. But it was because and we've talked about this on and off camera, is for years, ever since Disney bought Star Wars, they were like, well, like let's have things beyond the Skywalker saga, beyond like so that we're not tied down to that.
Yes.
Even Mandalorian has a little bit of that when they introduced Luke,
Right.
um, and everything else has been like tied to either Anakin or Vader or that core story of Star Wars, which we all love, but we were wanting something, because the Star Wars galaxy is so vast, and something with the Old Republic, which
Yes, yes.
they've announced their eras that they want to focus on, and we still haven't had anything with that. We still haven't like we're like in the far past, in the far future, and it just feels. And I am excited for the Rey movie. I'm excited for Dawn of the Jedi. I just I just need a show of good faith, I guess.
Right. I'm the same way. It's like I just want something to be able to put on my calendar and say, "Hey, this is coming out next year or in the next 2 years." Like you were
Right.
saying with the Ryan Johnson thing, it was like, "Oh yeah, I was in the back of my mind looking forward to a Ryan Johnson trilogy or whatever that was." And we had at one point the Game of Thrones guys were going to be doing something, and then we've
Mm-hmm.
had all these announcements, and then and also we're supposed the Taika Waititi project, whatever that thing is. I don't know if that's ever going to come to fruition. So it makes it unsteady ground. It's like shaky ground when you're announcing these things and then taking them away, and then there's
Yeah.
confusion about if there's going to be another season of a show or not, and then are there's these movies going to happen? What was the Patty Jenkins X-wing movie? Is that still
The Rogue
happening?
Squadron.
Yeah,
Who
the
knows?
Rogue Squadron.
Like that. And that was a time, that Disney was just announcing things, and like, well, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, and
Ah,
where it's just like, well, we don't really have this, because this was documented in a book about the MCU, where where Kevin Feige, president of Marvel, was just like, we're not ready to announce this yet, because Kevin Feige never likes to announce things unless he's ready for it. And and they would announce things like Rogue Squadron, Rangers of the New Republic, Lando, a Star Wars story, droids. All of these have not happened at all. And then you have things like Kevin Feige was going to be developing a Star Wars movie, which has
right.
now fallen through,
Yeah.
and it is very unsteady ground, because they announce these creatives that are attached to these things, and then we don't see the fruition, and that really creates a bad faith. For the most part, when Marvel has announced something, they make it.
Right.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
they're really the only prior to recently, the only time that they announced something that they didn't make was Inhumans.
Mm, right.
The Inhumans movie. I mean, they made
Right.
a TV show, but that was terrible. But 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 like they announced these things, and then like they're like, we're really excited about working with the Game of Thrones guys. We're really excited about working with Josh Trank. We're really excited about working with James Mangold. But then they have a failed project. Game of Thrones ended terribly, according to people. I can't say because I didn't watch the end of it, but I stopped when it was at its high point, and I prefer that's where that just got canceled or something.
Yeah.
That's
You're better
the
off.
area
Yeah.
that I'm living in.
Yes.
But Josh Trank with his Fantastic Four movies, like, and Taika Waititi, they're probably excited about working with him, but then Thor: Love and Thunder, was critically panned and didn't
Right.
do as well. And I think that's what makes Marvel and Star Wars different, is when Marvel sets out to make something, they're going to make it,
Mm,
and Star Wars is just like they keep announcing things and then they don't, and that
right.
create and like you just don't know if what Star Wars thing is going to happen.
Right.
It's almost like with Star Wars, like, well, until I see a trailer or a poster, I will believe it when I see it,
Right.
kind of
And then
mentality.
compare that to the publishing side where I feel a lot less anxiety. It feels like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they've got a plan, they've got comics, they've got novels, they've got, these things are they're announced and they come out and they're good.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
exactly. I mean, the Star Wars comics have been consistently delivering. I mean, the main runs of Darth Vader and Star Wars just wrapped, and those final issues were both different and were both fantastic. Those final issues, and then we got the Battle of Jakku stuff, which is going to be exciting because it's not some. It's only been and I didn't get a chance. I read the first Aftermath book, but I didn't finish the others. So exploring this territory, this area of Star Wars is so interesting. Like there was even a joke in the in the final Star Wars issue, where because the framing of spoilers for this issue is the framing of this issue is Luke Skywalker telling Ben Solo a story. And
Ooh.
he says, really, all that happened in that short amount of time? Because there was a few years that they were covering this between Empire and Jedi timeline. And so, and, they tell great stories. I mean, I, like you, like the publishing side, novels and comics, I've always felt safe in my Star Wars fandom because they can tell the stories they want to, and they don't have to worry about, for the most part, the toxic fandom, because the toxic
Right.
fandom part of Star Wars only unleashes itself with the live action and the film stuff. So
Right.
I always feel
Yeah.
safe there.
Yeah. I'm the same as you. And it's like I wish we could get that feeling throughout, that safeness
Mm-hmm.
and the feeling of it feels good to be a Star Wars fan. I'm getting more of that on threads than I am on, let's say, here on YouTube or on Twitter or other social media
Sure.
platforms. I just wish we could get something that all the Star Wars fans can unite around and love. I think Andor has been recently the closest thing I've seen where pretty much universally people praise it, people like it, and say this is something that is good in Star Wars. Hopefully, this second season kind of puts a nice bow on the whole Andor series and franchise. But as far as the future goes, I really wish we had something to hold on to, and the film side mirrored the publishing side. Like what they're doing on the publishing side, I would
Yeah.
love for the filmmakers to be like, hey, let's copy that model that they're using. And I know they're two different mediums and formats, but if they can just take the best elements out of what the publishing side is doing, then give us something, and also the product has to deliver as well. Give us great shows
Mm-hmm.
and movies, and the Star Wars fans will show up. So that is definitely a wish list that I have right now of like, man, I really want something. And even on the video game side, Star Wars Outlaws just came out, which I haven't had a chance to finish the storyline of it. But so far, I'm really enjoying Kay Vess's her kind of smuggler scoundrel storyline, uh,
Yeah.
and Cal Kestis is getting his last, the third, basically the ending of his trilogy is coming out in the future. So the video game side of Star Wars is also kind of in a nice place, and I like what they're doing as far as narrative. And I'm just hoping that we can get more in the live action space and even the animation space. I just want more stuff. Um,
Yeah, and like we mentioned the publishing side, video game side, like it's all good and it's all great, but the argument that I see is that Star Wars started in the movies, and
yeah,
and
I've seen that
I
argument.
mean,
Yep.
Star Wars like needs a good movie to
Yes.
really
Yes.
propel it into, the way that, the Avengers are is, you want Star Wars to because Star Wars was in for a while in that space, that upper pop culture space, and
Right.
you want it to continue to occupy that and not be like the thing that you just like because you've always liked it, and
Hmm.
you just feel like you're defending it unnecessarily sometimes, uh,
Right.
where you feel like you're always on guard. And I think Mandalorian and Grogu has the potential to be a really good
Mm.
Star Wars film.
Yes.
Just judging from the footage that we saw at D23 that leaked, I mean, I like saw that and I'm like, wow, like because like the Mandalorian has always like as a show has always been more cinematic, I feel, than
Right.
um,
Right.
than other Star Wars shows, and or notwithstanding, I really feel that because they got film directors to direct a lot of the episodes, to
Right.
people who directed movies, and
Right.
every episode almost felt like a mini movie. So to see that same aesthetic be applied to a Mandalorian movie, like when I heard they were making a Mandalorian movie, that just felt right to me
Yeah.
because it just has always been cinematic, and it's always been a little bit like when they were talking about Star Wars on Disney Plus. and like it'll be like Star Wars movies but on the small screen. I was like, okay, let's see how they can do this, and the Mandalorian delivered on that promise right out of the gate. So I feel that the Mandalorian will be a good starting point, and hopefully will people say, well, Star Wars is back in cinema with this.
Yes, yes, I would love for that to happen. So that is something I'm very much looking forward to. I'm curious, what are you looking forward to, viewer out there? I'm if you're looking forward to anything in the movie realm, in the TV realms, video games, comic books, publishing. What are you looking forward to the most in Star Wars right now? And I guess, how do you feel about Star Wars in 2024? What is your current sense and state? You've heard our opinions and our thoughts, so we want to hear from you here on Trust in the Force. We love hearing all of your comments down below. Tim, thank you for joining me, my friend. You are a shining light in the Star Wars fandom, so thank you
Thank
very
you, thank
much.
you.
I love talking to you, and we will have more on Trust in the Force. Hopefully, when Skeleton Crew comes out, we will have kind of weekly reviews and our thoughts there, but definitely stay tuned for more. We would always be honored if you would join us.
Trust only in the Force.